All right, we have Vlad Kats. Hello. Vlad Kats, he is an industry leader, and he is in real estate. He's sold real estate. He's an economist. He's owned franchises. He's owned a large expansion network. Vlad, I would love for you to self-introduce yourself to the viewers who are watching this today.
John, it's so much more fun to have somebody else introduce, but it represents oneself too. Like, all right, so that's been the journey, right? Because people like you and me, and I know a lot of others who are watching are kind of like, all right, this is where we are now. Where are we going? Forget about the past. Because the past is the past, right? So I'll give you kind of a quick bullet point. My first job out of college was foreign labor relations, or being an economist for the U.S. Department of Labor. So in that role, I learned just how much data matters, right? As we just create, whether in my case it was create labor related policies, and now of course in real estate there's profit and loss statements, financial analysis, etc. So then when I got out of government, I got my MBA at the University of Maryland, went into IT sales, then started an IT outsourcing company during the globalization, conversation for globalization, like the tail end of it. By the time I got out of there, we had 30 employees in Kazakhstan and Ukraine. And then, by stroke of luck, John, no joke, a couple of friends of mine were flipping houses in West Baltimore, and I think I was bored, and I was like, all right, I'm just gonna, it sounds like fun. It sounds like a good financial opportunity. Didn't know much about real estate, learned it fast, started flipping houses, West Baltimore. We, just flipping a couple of 2-3 houses a month. Then market turned. I got my real estate license, a couple of years before the market turned. And, as the market was turning, I was like, man, this real estate brokerage industry is actually a pretty interesting one. I was kind of in it, but I wanted to, I was realizing that it was more to it than just flipping houses. And what's always been on my heart, over the last few years, I've said that I've had a heart to serve, as I saw a huge opportunity to serve Americans. And when the market turned, one of the biggest opportunities was in the distressed market. Right. So I became what some people called here in Maryland, the short sale guy, and built a short sale sales team, a short sale processing company, because I just didn't like the way the short sales were processed by title companies, et cetera, and kind of solved that problem. We were number one sales team, short sale sales team in the state of Maryland for a few years running, until short sales, went out of style, if you will. And then, luckily for me, so I've kind of bounced around between different brokerages. Luckily for me, Sherry Harris, who was a team leader in the Baltimore Market Center, found me and started a conversation with me. And I was blessed enough to join a core group of people, of top agents, in the Pikesville, Maryland area, to start a Keller Williams franchise. And then once we launched it, few months into it, I raised my hand to become a team leader, took over a market center with about 59 agents. 35 months later, we had over 400. One of the fastest growing real estate offices in the United States during that time. And the KW system, we were number one. My team and I were number one. I think it was 2000. Oh my God, John, 2015.
Can I jump in there real quick?
Yes.
So you went from 35 agents to 300 in 1 year. Is that what you said?
No, 59 agents to 400 in 35 months. So a little bit less than 3 years.
Okay. Why, how did you make that happen, Vlad? What did you
know?
That's incredible. I mean, for the people who are watching, that's insane. That's probably record breaking for many brokerages in that short period of time, especially in a already developed market.
Yeah, it certainly was. It kind of happened very fast. And so I'll get into how. One of the things I want to tell you is that that brokerage within about 18, and that's going to add some color. in about 18 months, we became #1 in agents and units
And
in Baltimore County and Baltimore City. And then less than 2.5 years since launch, we were #1 real estate office in the state of Maryland, of any office, any company, okay, in terms of units sold. And that's how I kind of measure success in the real estate brokerage, is because at the end of the day, it's how many buyers and sellers that you're reaching. So in terms of how, it's when we took over that market center, I'm a big believer in business conversations and business relationships.
Yep.
And prior to us launching Keller Williams Legacy, the conversation within our local real estate community was more about popularity rather than validity. And I told my partners, told myself, I'm like, look, I am not a popular guy. In fact, when I was in short sales, I was not a popular guy, because in order to protect a seller in distress, you actually had to, you had to do things. We called ourselves the emergency room for real estate on my short sale team. And, you have to make decisions fast, and you have to be curt, direct, to the point, etc. And what I brought with me into the team leader role is like, look, I'm not here to be anybody's friend, John. And I'm a really good friend. Like, I have a lot of good friends. And I am certain that real estate professionals don't need Vlad the friend. Okay. What the real estate community needs is a different conversation. And so how we got to, the #1 office in the state of Maryland is we transformed the conversation. So we went from a popularity type of conversation. We're either, whether it's a brokerage or an agent says, I'm better, or I'm hipper, I'm cooler, I have better space, I have, taller ceilings, I have whatever it is, to like, all right, what really makes the difference for the real estate professionals? And I'm under belief is that what really makes a difference for the real estate professionals is how much money they put in their bank accounts. Because, I have not met a real estate licensee yet, at least a really successful one, who does it strictly for fun. Now we end up like, I know I'm preaching to the choir here. You and Brittany, you're, at least top 10 team in Jacksonville, probably, higher than top 10. I've seen you on stages at, in conventions. Like you both come from, either Big Four CPA or iBanking, right? So it's like, you end up having fun when you're really enjoying what you do. But I guarantee you that, I doubt that you would be having as much fun if, instead of making, 700 grand a year, you were making 70 or 7.
Right.
Like so it's not why you're here. It's the fun can be the byproduct of a lot of different things, right? So, to make the long story short, is we transformed the conversation, and we started having a conversation that appealed to business owners and those who wanted to become business owners. And suddenly, people are like, you know what? Maybe it's not about the logo on my business card. Or, you know what? Maybe it's not about the office location. You know what? Maybe it is about a conversation that I can grow into.
Right.
Okay.
All while you're doing that, I mean, you're being a disruptor, right? You're taking away the glamour of it, and you're saying like, hey, here's the variables that actually matter. So I bet you had a lot of people come after you and say, oh, it's not real, or did you have people come after you and kind of target you?
John, I mean, the first 2 years was all that, and luckily for me and my team, and like, I know that you're talking to me, but please understand that, those types of results are not achievable, like on me. Like I would have like broken down, and my wife would not see me at all. My kids would not see me at all. And, that's how people burn out, is attempting to do it on their own.
Yep.
I brought on some really talented people, from Teal Kleiss to Ilana Huber-Katz to Tina Beliveau to Meta Edwards. There was plenty of others who've contributed in such a way that we were a team, and we took recruiting as a team sport. That's how we looked at it.
Yeah.
right? And then it became, all right, so how do we make sure that we have the same message in the same conversation to appeal to those that we want to appeal to? So yeah, a lot of people were absolutely saying, Keller who, why are you doing this? In fact, when I liked your post from a few days ago or a week ago, it kind of reminded me of some of the ways that we disrupted our market. Is we actually started talking about numbers.
Yep.
Like, look, uh, I'm a Baltimore Ravens fan, okay, and I appreciate people winning. So like whatever people want to say, and I don't want to get political here, but whatever you have to say about Tom Brady, okay,
Yeah.
handsome, not handsome, tall, not tall, nice guy, not nice guy, dude has 6 rings. So he may not be popular outside of Massachusetts for most part, but dude is valid everywhere in the world. And how do we measure validity, John? We measure the number of rings.
Yep.
You know, and so in real estate, it's one of the most transparent industries. You can say you're the best, you can say you're the GOAT, but then all I have to do is go into the broker metrics and see that you haven't listed a house in 3 months. Now, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just like, it is what it is. You just don't say you're the GOAT. But what I brought in, and my team brought in, is a conversation for validity, which is rooted in numbers. Now, I was also blessed enough where the company at that time was led by John Davis, and all John talked about were numbers.
Yep.
And going back to how we started the Economist, right, and just understanding data, I was like, you know what? There's a really great point. It's numbers are important. It's not all about the numbers, but numbers are important. That's how I know whether I'm winning or not. That's how I know whether my people are winning or not, right? Like, look, if your business, the purpose of your business is to fund your perfect life, and you have $3 in your bank account, you're not winning. You're not winning at that game. You may be happy, you may be totally great, you're just not winning in the game of real estate sales or real estate business ownership. And the reason people join real estate brokerages, in my opinion, and by the way, it doesn't matter what brand they're joining, but the reason they're joining is so that they can, whether it's they're joining a team, whether they're joining a brokerage, whether they want to start a team, with anything in between, is because they want an opportunity to fund their perfect life. Okay, so when we brought that conversation, that it wasn't about how great we were. Who cares about, like, look, who cares about how great Vlad is, or Teal and she's awesome, or Tina and she's amazing, to me, right? But like, if we as a team cannot help you get to your goals,
yep,
who cares? Who cares? So I know that it was kind of a a long answer to your short question. How did we do it? Is we transformed the conversation from that of popularity to that of validity. And people not only laughed, people accused me of publishing data. Like, I would just take a broker metrics chart, and one broker here, we're cool now, but one broker here accused me of like mislabeling. And I just and I made a really honest mistake. Like, I actually like, in charts, it was awesome. But here's the thing: as all of that was happening, John, and that maybe have helped you because I know you just launched, a new brand in your market, is, see, I didn't care. I didn't care what they were saying. What I cared about is that they were in my conversation.
Tell me more about that.
So look, if I'm bringing on the validity conversation, which is rooted in numbers, right?
Yep.
Numbers tell a story, and behind every number, there's a human being.
Yep.
So look, I ended up in the real estate industry. If you told me graduating from B school that I was going to have a real estate license and own real estate brokerages and serve real estate professionals, I would have laughed, because I was on my path to, corporate career, probably very similar to yours, and like, I was looking at Wall Street, was never smart enough to get there. So like, I studied finance, studied entrepreneurship, strategy, or my, favorite courses. I wanted to be, senior vice president of strategy at some, Fortune 500 or something like that. But, this real estate industry is a fascinating one, dude. And what fascinates me about the real estate industry is that, first of all, we help Americans with their biggest financial decisions of at least a decade.
Right.
Like, you and Brittany and your team served a few hundred people, right? Like 500, I don't know how many houses you sold, right? But it's like hundreds of people who are relying on you to help them with a $200,000 investment, $300,000, $400,000 investment. So I'm like, OMG, it's such a big opportunity to make a difference, right? And there's so much misinformation. I don't care about also internet, because there's just as much misinformation about internet, right? Up until a year ago, we used to laugh at Zillow and
Yeah.
their algorithms, right? Of, their that you actually have to you cannot trust the Zillow algorithm. Today it's different, but like I remember the days when it was totally off, when it's like totally off, right? But then on the other hand, it also brings together this like awesome group of people. Like anybody can be in real estate.
Yeah.
Like in what other industry can you have, a Russian-born dude with foreign labor relations experience and IT sales talk to or be in the same conversation as iBanker, right? And then firefighter or a former police officer or a former teacher or a former fill in the blank. It's just kind of this melting pot of individuals, and we're out to do two things, in my opinion. One is to serve our consumers, serve our customers as best as we can, or maybe that's not even enough, as best as we can, but like as they deserve to be served. Okay. And then the second is to create the life that we want, because in real estate, there's no limits.
Right.
There's just no limits. You put limits on your earning potential. And it's like, as a former team leader, I used to consult, a lot of agents, a lot of mega agents, real estate business owners from, both in KW and outside of KW. And, sometimes they would be like, look, my buyer agent wants a raise. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so awesome. All they have to do is just sell more houses.
Yep.
It's like, that's it. It's just so cool. Oh, and then, the final component that, makes me giggle about real estate is everybody needs it.
Right.
There isn't a person that's walking in Jacksonville right now that doesn't need real estate. Now, the question is whether they need real estate services today. But like my joke is that all my 3 daughters, and they're all under the age of 10, should be in somebody's database. Because sooner, like within 15 years, all 3 of them will need something.
Yeah.
Right. So like when you combine all of that, and it's like real estate is the best industry on this planet, and it affects so many other industries. And we have an opportunity to make a difference, both for now you as a broker owner, you get to make a difference with the agents, right? Because, and I'm sure we'll talk about the agent, state of affairs within the agent world, but also like now, instead of you helping buyers and sellers, right? It's the people that you empower, it's people that you lead are now working with buyers and sellers. So like every house that your brokerage sells or helps a buyer or seller with is, guess what? There's a piece of Jon and Brittany in it. And so it was this humbling experience for me when, our brokerage got to about 3,000 transactions in a year, like, 250, 300 consumers served each and every month. And I was like, OMG. And like 3-4 years earlier, we didn't even exist. Okay, we were just talking about it existing. It didn't even exist, and now we're touching thousands of people each and every year. It's a pretty humbling type of experience. You also get this that you get present, at least I got present to this, there's the wow achievement, but then there's even higher responsibility.
What is that responsibility?
Well, it's look, again, going back to what I said, is people join any brokerage because they want to reach their financial goals.
Yep.
In fact, like that's what made me so unpopular is, people came in and they wanted to speak to me about life. And I was like, okay, great. Your life is going to be awesome as soon as you reach your financial goals.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about your financial goals. I don't have any goals. Okay, great. Then you're in the wrong conversation.
Yeah. So I'm just curious, like, because not a lot of people have those conversations. Most people are focused on the GCI and the number of units and looking amazing on social media and making people believe they're having success, versus kind of like when you look under the hood to a car and you're like, oh my gosh, there's no engine even in it. And it's just, does that surprise you or does it not surprise you?
A number of things. So look, becoming a team leader and really getting into like, I had thousands, John, of conversations with real estate professionals, those who just got their real estate license to those who are like, I want to expand or I want to keep $1 million. Okay. And like everybody in between. And at first it was surprising, no longer. Look, when you meet with that many people, I know you know this, is that there's a confirmation to the mean that occurs, right? And so that's just a society that we live in. Nothing wrong with Facebook, and Facebook does not necessarily bring out the best in us.
Right.
And one could make an argument that the level of authenticity in the world is all-time low.
Yeah, I mean, people are saying they're more disconnected than ever. People are getting depressed. They're not having authentic relationships. And what's confusing to me, Vlad, is like I'm going on Facebook and I see agents. They're awesome, wonderful people, right? But they're saying one thing, and then when I look at the data and the numbers on the other side, it's like, well, which one's true? Is the raw data correct, or is my data wrong and they're right? And does that even matter at all? Or should it just be like, hey, no conversation about that. The only thing that we're going to focus on is like how to get you from your goal of point A to point B, which
I think that's it, John. I think you hit the nail on the head. That's how I know you're like way ahead of the curve. If you're ever looking for a team leader role anywhere in the system, I can guarantee you that I can open the door to. Here's what I'll tell you. The conversation, and that was somewhat evident from your post. And again, I want to acknowledge you. I know I kind of was late to the party there.
yeah.
I want to acknowledge you for having that conversation. But a lot of the comments on that post, and by the way, that's totally indicative of the world that we live in, okay? It did not have to do with the conversation, was about proving a point.
Which is what?
Which is I'm right and you're wrong.
Right. So what's curious.
I don't mean you, so I just want to be really clear. It's just whenever people engage in those types of conversations, nothing wrong with it. It's just it doesn't actually move the conversation and then the ball forward. Okay. So you hit the nail on the head. It's actually not about like one way or another. It's like, look, let's close the door. Let's be real about what you want. Okay. And people are in this industry to earn a living. Now, ego can drive whatever conversation it can drive. That's great. But once you're behind a closed door, once you're like, all right, I trust the person that I'm speaking to, now it can be about what you want out of life. And so my conversations with those who were considering joining Keller Williams, some joined, some didn't join, totally great. My goal was to add value to their business journey, regardless what they ended up doing. And look, I'm friends with a lot of folks who did not join, and they text me and they congratulate me, and and I get coffee with them. It's a really awesome relationship because for me, it was not about the brand. Yes, I thought that and think that Keller Williams is awesome. But guess what? I was with Remax before and I thought it was awesome. Yeah. And I was with Passport Realty before it was awesome. And before that I was with DR Realty. It's all great. But the conversations that I'm in now is not about Keller Williams. It's not about Remax. It's not about Coldwell Banker. It's not about fill in the blank. It's about the person and about their business. And that conversation needs to start with, what is your goal?
Yep.
Okay. I don't have a goal. Okay. Is it because you actually don't have a goal, or because you're concerned about speaking or sharing your goals? Because I think everybody has a goal. Now their goal may not be as verbalized as mine are or
Right.
as yours are, but it could be like, hey, I need to make $50,000 more this year than I did last year. That's a goal. It doesn't have to be on a nice piece of paper with, like, a bunch of highlights. Like, I'm not asking for a business plan. Trust me, I used to write business plans, 10, 15 pages in B school. And and then it was like, all I need is one page. That's one of the things that I love about Gary Keller is one of my favorite sayings of his is, in order to be on the same page, you have to get it on one page.
Yep.
And then now my business plans are like a spreadsheet, right? Because numbers are numbers. And the conversation becomes, it's like, all right, so you want to make $50,000 more than last year. Okay, great. How much did you make last year? I made 50. Okay, so it sounds like you need to make 100 this year. Okay, so let's just take that's your goal.
Yep.
And then you're going from 50 to 100. Okay, great. That's awesome. Nothing wrong with it. By the way, here was a rookie mistake. And this is all right if I keep talking, because I know you probably have some questions. This is going to be like a 4-hour interview in like 11 parts or something.
This is so good. Please keep going. I love it.
All right, cool. Thanks. So, one of my biggest frustrations early on in my real estate days, especially as a team leader, that just exacerbated it, is I didn't think people had goals big enough.
Yeah.
And dude, and guess, like, I had this epiphany, John. And that was like, when I made that judgment call, who was that about?
That was about you and you were judging them. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, and it made my life after that so much easier, because I would like be in an appointment and I'm like, that's it? You only want to make 100 grand? Yeah, I'm making a lot more than 100 grand. I'm like, really? You just want me? Come on, like, we can send your kid to private school. We can get you a job. We can buy, like, that house that you live in sucks. Like, dude, somebody wants to make 100 grand and that's going to make them happy or move them towards that progression. Who am I to judge somebody else's goal? You see, I position myself as their guide from where they are to where they want to go. And so you have a broker. So we have a brokerage, almost 400 agents, right? And some people have a goal of like, I just want to sell one house every quarter so that I can take that money and put that money into my grandkids' college savings fund. Dude, how awesome is that?
Yeah.
And then you have others, for let's say Mark Simone or Annie Balzerzak, they're like, no, my goal is to set the world on fire. What that looks like is I'm making over $1 million a year. Okay, great. But then, like, I started treating goals like their goals. And some have a longer path towards them. Some want to climb Mount, Kilimanjaro, and some want to go for a hike in the woods.
Can I jump in there, Vlad? Because one of the things that I've learned is my goals continue to get bigger because I've been surrounded by people with massive goals that I had never thought of. So some of these people we sit down with have never been exposed to someone to think that big and so wild and far away, or even like have it be a possibility in their life. And so when you ask them, what's your goal? And they're like, hey, I just want to make, $20K and replace my other job that I was working part-time. And you're kind of like, oh, like that's it. It's like, well, because they might not have been around you or been in the same conversations that you've had where people are like, oh yeah, like I want to start like 5 companies this year and they're each going to net $1 million and it's going to be easy to do. Look what I did last. Like they've just never even been in that environment. So how do they don't even have the vocabulary to be able to explain what their goal is, because most people that we sit down with and say we like do career visioning in the motivation interview, they don't know. They have no, this might be the first time they've ever had a conversation about goals. It might be the first conversation they've ever had in their life about money, which is a taboo subject in this country, which is something I'm passionate about changing, because I think that we need to talk about it, especially with the socioeconomic differences that are occurring right now. The middle class is getting whittled away and the funds are really going to the top percentage, and there's a working class and there's an investor class, and with technology it's all just going to be, do you know what I'm saying? Like,
I do.
most people have never had somebody sit down and have that conversation with them because they've never been exposed to it.
That's it. And so like they have no chance. And
Yep.
and then when it's awesome that you bring in just the human element, societal elements into this conversation, because guess who the real estate professionals are? They're humans.
Yep.
And they come from all walks of life, like I said earlier, right? Some are older, some are younger, some are more educated, some are less educated, but what you get is the humanity in this industry. And there's, a couple of million of us, right, with real estate licenses. So you start seeing kind of this, this same type of population. But then look, it's, most people, how do I say this without kind of, I'll just say it, is, most people, there is resignation and cynicism. That's a normal part of our lives. We just don't go through life thinking that we're resigned and cynical. But if you think about what's on TV, what do most parents teach their kids? How do they behave? It's more of like, keep your head below, keep your head down, like get a solid job. Nothing wrong with that, but it's more like safety, protection. It's, be concerned with failure. Like, why are you trying something big? Like all of that type of the conversation that kind of settles in. So it's no surprise that somebody sits in front of you and says, I don't have goals, or my goal is what you and me may consider small, right? But you're absolutely right. Like they've had the societal conversation is not an empowering one.
Well, I think I mean, I went to public school, all right? So and I'm totally proud of that. And I had a great public school experience, but we never had a goal setting class. We never had a class on money. And then when you get out of, and you're told to say, get good grades, go to college, go get a corporate job, get a 401k. If you save correctly, you might be able to enjoy 10 years of your life when you're about to be dead. Yep. That's the conversation that we generally have, but nobody says oh, there's another path where you can build your own thing, you can hire people, you can have a big life, you don't have to live life in that little box. And I feel like the school system, at least the one that I went to, puts you in that box and just packages you together. It's like an assembly line of here to here to here to here to work and go work in a factory, go be an iBanker and do that thing. But then you're totally not in control of your life. You have virtually nothing. There's always someone ahead of you who has control over what you do. And I think the people who come to real estate are the ones saying I don't want those people pulling the strings on what I do. I want to have control. And that's the one commonality I've seen across the agents that I've worked with.
They do, but then the question then becomes, and by the way, everything that you just said is if anybody watching is interested in what John just said about the factory mentality, is Seth Godin's Linchpin. I think is the best book that kind of talks about that, right? Yep. As you were talking about, I was I'm looking at the book. And the real estate professionals, get into this industry. And so here's my rub on the real estate industry, okay? And it's totally in line with what you just said. It's people get into this industry and then combine that with, TV shows and Facebook, that what we as real estate professionals show on Facebook, just how easy it is. Oh, just close my 100th home, or oh, another buyer came in. And so a lot of people do enter this industry thinking that it's easy, and they are running away from something. They're running away from their crappy boss before, or they're, I don't want to work 80 hours. Say it again.
Flexible schedule,
right? Yep. And they come in and they're like, oh, none of that is actually true, right? But then we also don't prepare them for it.
Right.
It's look, there is, the washout rate in this industry is incredibly high. And we go through it, and we're as brokerage owners, one of the things that just always was kind of nails on the chalkboard for me is oh, just accept that it's a 30, 40% churn rate, just out recruit it. Okay. And look, and we did, okay, we did. And there were days that I accepted, days that I didn't.
Right.
But, I kind of look at this real estate landscape, and I'm all right, so in order to be in this industry, one typically leaves a full-time job. Okay. In order to be in this industry, you take at least 2 exams, and nobody in America these days loves exams for some reason. Okay. It's like the school is teaching, like there's so many exams in school and people think that they're failing, when they get, a grade.
Right.
And so exams are now taboo. And then you have to sit in class or sit online for between, 60 hours. I know in Texas, it's like 180 hours. Okay. And then you have to pay $1,000 to $2,000 to affiliate with a board and with a real estate office. So I doubt that there is Johnny, the future real estate agent, is out there. It's like, you know what? I'm going to spend $2,000 and 100 hours and take 2 tests that I suck at. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to fail. Like that does, right? And so these people, these mid-level managers that go from, long tenures and W-2 employment for big companies, they come into this real estate industry and they go from good or great to suck. And then like 6 months later, they're out. And I'm like, okay, so look, it could be about the million people that are entering the real estate industry. But that would be kind of like putting blame on them. What if we look at us as the real estate industry and say, like, what can we do to support those? And I think it's a context shift, right? Because like real estate, John, is real estate simple? Yes or yes?
There's 6 parts to a transaction. And once you have them down, there's very few variations that are going to expand your mind. It's generation at the end of it.
Yeah. It's really simple. It's like, look, stock trading is complex.
It's not maybe.
Okay, fair enough.
But it depends on your parameters. So,
right.
My opinion.
Fair enough. I'm talking to you. So to you, it's definitely not complex. But it's like there's really medicine is complex, legal profession is complex. Real estate is pretty simple. So I started thinking. Actually, after I got out of the team leader role, it's like, how come so many people fail when the industry is so simple and 100% of the people in your life need it? And 100% of people in your life know other people who need it. And so it's like, it's talk to people, and then you have a broker that actually is more concerned about legalities than you are as a real estate salesperson. So it's like, the industry is simple. Why are people failing?
So let's both take a guess at that. I mean, I'm sure you actually know, but I want to hear,
Go for it. You go first.
I think people come in with the wrong expectations because the people who are promoting the massive success aren't being realistic about what their life is actually like. Like, for example, I go to a conference and I see somebody on stage selling 1,000 homes and their marriage is falling apart and they're not actually making any money and they're about to go through bankruptcy and they just had 3 people turn over and they're stressed out and their health is declining. Like literally their life is falling apart and their business is falling apart at the same time. But they're the ones who are on stage that we're listening to, and I'm modeling my life off of the people that are on stage. But I don't have all the data. So how am I supposed to make a decision when all I get is one sliver of the data without seeing what's under the hood and being like, oh, is this an actual lifestyle that I want? So I think like people aren't doing enough diligence when they come into the industry. And so they don't see like, oh, like what do you actually do day to day? Like, do they know I'm on the phone for 4 hours a day calling for sale by owners and expireds? And then after that, I door knock my neighborhood for 4 hours. Like, do they actually know what it takes to have massive? I don't think they know, because no one's sitting down with them and telling them like, hey, like maybe you shouldn't, because number one, it's so easy to get a license. Like literally anybody with a pulse and $2,000 can go get a license and manage the largest financial transaction of most people's lives, which I think is like just absolutely insane that they're even allowed to do that without any sort of education. That causes most of the broker problems here. So I would say low standard would be my guess. Like anybody can do it. And then the expectations that are set are totally out of control. It's not being realistic with the agent. It's selling them a story or a vision that's just not realistic. But or like you said, like it's easy to do. Like, oh, I could just get my license and sell 5 homes and it'll be easy. But then they sell 5 and they still have their license and they're paying their dues. I'm just gonna get out of the industry now. I've made my couple grand and I'm gonna get out, and nobody benefits from that. Nobody.
No, the level of professionalism can certainly go down quickly if that's if that's proliferated, and during the up markets it certainly happens a lot. So I think that you're right on point, and again, like your instincts are awesome, like in terms of accuracy. It's the only thing I would add to that is that there is context misalignment.
Okay.
Between those that come in, okay, and those who are already here. So you pointed to that. So if you judge a profession by Facebook feed, yeah, like I mean that's just not an accurate, right? Just not an accurate assessment.
Everyone's just showing their wins. They don't really share their failures as much.
Right. You're right. I haven't seen a post yet. Had the thought I was going to sell $1 million home, and then the buyers backed out during a walkthrough. I have yet to see that one. Yeah. And I already spent the money.
Yeah.
I think that there is another component to it, and that component is rooted in how we talk and how we think about the real estate industry. Okay. So a very common question to ask a real estate professional is, how is your business? Okay. Now, it's a simple question, and it's now in the same kind of ballpark as how are you?
Right.
Okay. And, I remember coming to America, almost 30 years ago as a young boy. And one of the early on surprises I had is just how many people didn't answer a how are you question. So like when somebody asked me, how are you? I felt like I needed to answer.
Right.
But then, right. But now it's like, just like, how are you is like waving, it has been.
Wow. So yeah.
So how's your business? But see, that presupposes that the other person actually has a business.
Right.
And look, there is a business in terms of formation of an LLC, and you can even call a business a sole proprietorship, but business is a mindset. Owning a business is a mindset. So, you have a question like, how's your business? And most real estate professionals are in sales business, are in sales roles. Okay. Now, we'll get to that in just a second. But look, the natural progression in society, and there's a reason behind it. Natural progression in society, at least up until now, is just like you pointed out, you go to school, you get a degree, you get a job. If you're good at that job, it turns into your career. Then usually from that career is a jumping off point into your business. And then most Americans don't start businesses.
No, they don't.
In accounting world, let's just take the accounting world that you and Brittany are very familiar with, is like, how many of your comrades there, just like, okay, I've been here a year, I'm just going to go start my accounting practice.
They don't, because they're comfortable. They have benefits. They don't get paid enough to be able to save to go launch their own. To be honest with you, just like that. It's literally, they pay you just enough to stay there and no more.
Perfect. And then after a year, once they become good, like you guys were career people in your bank, and like based on my conversation with you earlier, you were like, you were really good at what you were doing. You were sent all over the place to fix problems, right?
Loved it.
Yeah, and you really enjoyed it and got compensated well for it. You actually had a solid career. You could have been, managing a large team or a vice president of something by now, whatever it was, right? Well, but whatever didn't work out. But here's what the point I want to make is, when we look at the real estate industry, an 18-year-old, just like you were pointing out, with a pulse, can go get a real estate license and then come in and be given a business. In what other industry is that even plausible? 18-year-old gets a job, Then that 18-year-old performs well at the job.
Yep.
That becomes a career, but not only a career, now they can start making more money and they get a very different level of knowledge that then they can kind of pivot slightly and create either a niche or move up the chain to make more money, right? And in some professions, they can even become a partner of the business. Accounting, I know, is one. Legal, it's another. Become a managing partner of something or a partner of something, right? But in real estate, congratulations, you have a business. Now, combine that with a conversation, business. But we all know most people, John, don't have a business mindset.
No, they don't.
They have a sales mindset, yes, okay, or they have a job mindset, maybe. So we as professionals in the real estate industry, those who own offices, I think that there is a part on us is like, hey, you know what? Before you actually own a business, you should start thinking like a business owner.
Right.
Because a sure way to have a failed business is to just dive in with both feet in with no knowledge, which is what happens in the real estate industry. Is you see John and Brittany's Facebook feed. I'm on stage with Gary Keller. John is a smart guy, but he's not the smartest guy. You know, somebody may be thinking John is a really smart guy, but dude, like, you know what? He got a B on the midterm once, and I got an A on the same midterm. So like, I think I can do it better. And look, he's already on stage with Gary Keller, right? And then combine that with, like you said, low barriers to entry. People are just coming in, having no expectations, have no business mindset. They think it's about selling. But guess what? One of the ways to get out of business could be to sell too much.
Yeah.
Because when your cost of sale goes unchecked, when your marketing budget goes unchecked, when a Zillow rep can sell you on a zip code while you're driving to a showing, like, you're having a business conversation with a salesperson mindset. Okay? Very few people can take off one hat and put on another. And guess what? As a small business owner, technically, you're wearing like 15 different hats. But the business owner hat, nobody talks. I shouldn't say nobody. We talk about it. I don't think we're getting through. Because if most people understood that it's not that they're getting into the real estate business, is they're starting a real estate business. It would create for them a conversation like, I'm starting a technology company, or I'm starting a clothes store, or I'm starting a Subway, or a deli, or I'm starting a restaurant. There's a very different set of actions that comes with that conversation versus I'm getting my license. Congratulations, you have a business. You won. No, you actually didn't. You actually didn't. And then combine that with the forces in the industry is, NAR, how they get paid is, based on dues. And look, it's a professional organization. It wants to have as many members as possible. So it's not in our best interest to educate all the entrants. So that barriers to entry, like you were pointing out, good luck. Nobody is doing that, and nobody's planning on doing that.
So the job of the brokerage, if I'm hearing you correctly, is you're bringing non-business people in, and you're helping them become business owners.
Yeah.
But it's not as effective as we would all like, because we're still seeing the people on stage have very little profit, right? So like, it's not getting through. Exactly what you just said.
It's not. The real estate margins are shrinking.
Right.
Okay. And it's a sign of times. Look, the industry is getting disrupted. It gets disrupted by conversations. It's getting disrupted from within the industry, and it's getting disrupted from the outside of the industry. Like Zillow is direct to consumer. Gary is right on point. It's like we have to be really beware. And then within the industry is, especially in hot markets like most of the country is experiencing right now, there is a pressure on like, why am I paying the broker? Why am I paying you? Why am I paying you? So there's margins that are squeezed all over the place, which, by the way, the margins used to be really, really high. They're just not anymore. As somebody who's, look, it's for a real estate professional to have a P&L is like half the battle. Okay, because most real estate professionals probably like, look, I don't I don't mean to make people who are watching this uncomfortable, but if you are uncomfortable, it's like you're in the right conversation. I was there myself. Is uh, having a P&L is half the battle. Most do not have a P&L. For most real estate professionals, their P&L is their tax return. And most of them are surprised by how much of a check they need to write. And they think in terms of, now I have to sell 3 houses to pay Uncle Sam.
Right.
Okay, the next 3 houses go to Uncle Sam. So having a P&L is half the battle. Now, another thing that I learned from John Davis back in the day is you can use the profit and loss statement as a report, or you can use it as a tool. And using it as a report is okay, but using it as a tool is much more powerful. It's kind of like, if you're, the way I look at P&L is your scoreboard.
Yep.
So there you are playing basketball and you're down by 5. You know what actions you need to take. See, that scoreboard is telling you what actions you need to take. That's using it as a tool versus you saying, oh, I'm just down by 5. Oh, I'm just down by 7. Oh, I'm ahead. Now, like that score, that P&L is telling you what actions to take. And I'm not talking about perfection here, John and everyone else. I'm just talking about like, all right, so if you don't have a P&L, go hire somebody to put it together so that you know where you are. And then stare at it for 6 months. Don't do anything, just stare at it. And then at the 6 months, start making decisions using it. Totally acceptable. What's unacceptable is not having a conversation about that. Okay? And so, to your point is, the profitability, whether they're on the stage or not, like, I haven't looked at many P&Ls of people who are on stage, but I do know that everybody's margins are getting squeezed, and that the 40% profit margin is for a sales business is, a thing of the past for most.
Right.
Thing of the past for most. Now, I know you and Brittany, ran a really tight operation because you had going back to goals, you had a really clear goal in mind. And you're like, we have whatever, 2 or 3, 4 years, whatever you set the goal to. It was just like, and you squeezed, right? Very few people have your level of discipline and of course knowledge. And I think very few people actually appreciate it. And I think that it's, being in business with individuals like you, again, to your point, is like, you have a bigger conversation. So if somebody out there is not even having a business conversation, it's about putting yourself in a chair that's surrounded by other chairs that have people in those chairs having whatever this conversation appears to be like.
Right. So,
okay, and not look for a friend in someone. Look, this could be my point of cynicism, but my friends today are controlled by, the age of their children. It's like, it's rare to hang out with one of my single buddies because it's, usually with children, right? So like, it's not about, usually with my children, it's not about friendship. It's about like, all right, it's about a business relationship. And I think that the purest business relationship is where there's a clear conversation about value. And you see, it's like, one of the objections that I, had to overcome as a team leader is I really like my broker. And it was the weirdest conversation for them to have with me, because I would just look and say, that's so awesome. What does it have to do with this conversation?
Yep. What does that have
so
to
awesome.
do with hitting your goal? Yeah, like congratulations, you have a relationship. I feel like
I'm happy for you. I'm like, okay, but I want to talk to you about $100,000. Can we go back to $100,000? Yeah, but I really like my broker. That's awesome. Like I like my broker too. David is an awesome guy.
Right. But we're not talking about relationships. We're talking about your business. And it's kind of the same thing with like these mega teams that hold on to a ton of admin when they're not the right people. Right. And it's just like, okay, but like, we're not talking about the relationship. We're talking about is the business long-term viable with this person's salary? Because over time you hire enough people in there that don't add enough value, you're out of business. That's just a regular.
Well, look, now it's a conversation about like how, the intricacies of it, right? So I think that one is you're 100% on point. Look, I'm a career visioning instructor, right? And I travel around the regions and teach career visioning, and look, here's a fact: most real estate professionals, and I would say a lot of business owners in general, hire out of need.
Yep, I did it.
Yes, same here. So it's like, okay, so when you combine that with, hiring out of need, you rarely get the best people.
Yep.
I've known people who've gotten really lucky.
Yeah.
Totally cool. I just wasn't one of them, not out of need. Okay. And then if you're hiring out of need and they kind of fill that need, you're actually not looking at things objectively. It's like you're actually not looking at the return that you're getting on the asset, which is the people in your organization. But look, some people may say, well, Vlad, that's cold. I actually think that's not cold. Yeah. It's like, look, in my organization, for the people that have invested in me, I've created sick returns for them.
Yeah. And I've seen that. That's true. That's very true.
Sick returns. People have been cashing checks. Okay? I love that. But look, they put in money. They paid me. They put in money. They put their money. They put their influence, whatever, leadership in me. Like, I expect the return is going to come the same way that I expect the return to come from the people that I'm working with as well, because it's a business relationship. So it's no surprise people have a hard time letting go of people. And by the way, like, it's a really common conversation in career visioning and the entire leverage series, is I warn people is like, before we get started, is raise your right hand and repeat after me. I promise not to fire anyone after this class. And, we get a bunch of giggles, of course, but that's the truth, right? Is like, look, it's not about getting rid of people. It's about, okay, how do you set up a business relationship so it's a win-win? Like, if somebody joins your brokerage, I want them to join your brokerage for a real specific set of reasons that you both agree implicitly or explicitly that you're going to help them achieve. And then a year into it, if they're not moving towards their goals, like,
you just hit the nail. I mean, from my perspective, it's all about clarity. So sometimes people hire people with not even having clarity on what they're going to do and how they're going to do it and what numbers they need to hit. Like for an admin to hit their goal, which is a cost center, right? So it's like, okay, are they just a cost center, or are they required to bring in 2 referrals per month to help cover their costs because they're a team member, and every team member should be committed to the vision of the group and lead generate? And a lot of people will scurry off and be scared because, like, oh, my personality type isn't that. Well, it's like, use your personality type to your advantage. You have a network, you have other people you can connect with. Like, lead generation doesn't have to be cold calling, or there's so many different ways to do it. But the problem that I've observed is that the team leader, and I did this myself, the team leader didn't clearly set expectations. So it's clarity and expectations, and then hold accountable to it. So they forget, okay, after a month, let's actually review what you did, and let's go over and see if you provided enough value to the company to support your salary. Because the idea is, like, not only do you have to provide enough for your salary, but now you need a return on it as well. That's going to be able to help grow the business even further. Because if I don't get the return, then I can't hire somebody underneath you, and you can't move up.
That's it.
So you're actually, by not hitting your goals, you limit your own potential for the future and put our whole company at risk. I don't know if anybody's having those conversations, and it's like, to me and Brittany, it's like, well, it's common sense because it's in the numbers. The numbers tell the story, the data tells the story. But then there's like arguments on what data is real and not. And it's like, I don't know how to argue the data because we all have the same data sets. So what is there?
I wouldn't argue the data. Like, I know you didn't ask me for advice there, but like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't argue the data. I would just be glad that people are talking about it.
Right, exactly. Bingo. Like, let's just get a conversation going
Yeah.
about it
Like,
because it is a problem.
and then there's, look, you're in that kind of like the early adopter phase. Okay, you're in the pioneer phase. So not everybody's ready for it, dude. Like, it's a conversation that ruffles feathers. And you, again, you made a point earlier about the financial conversation just in our country is taboo.
Yeah, it's really messed up.
But look, when you stand for something, you can have the conversations regardless. And I know that sometimes people will get under your skin, okay, and you'll have to get thicker skin or not let them. But look, people operate in accordance with how the world occurs to them. So if somebody doesn't want to have a financial conversation because they're afraid that somebody will steal their money, they're not going to talk to you about their business. And that's okay.
Right, it's not for everybody.
But critical mass, look, Gandhi, when he freed India, it's not like he had support from 100% of Indians. Martin Luther King did not have 100% support of African Americans. It's not about 100%. And that's what we sometimes go through life attempting to appease the masses.
Right.
Okay. Rather than just, figuring out who your crew is. They're on the local level in Jacksonville, and today it may be 3 people. Tomorrow will be 13. A month after, a year later, it'll be 30. And then before you know it, you wake up and you're in like the #1 office in the state. And that's what happened to us. Like, you see, you're driven, and obviously you and me have had a number of conversations before, and it's see, you're not driven by being #1. You enjoy being #1, like, right? Like,
it doesn't, the number doesn't matter to me because my initial goal was just how do I make enough money so I have freedom of choice to do what I want to do. And then it switched to how do I help other people do the same.
That's it. So it's about freedom of choice. It's about freedom for you and others. So look, when we started Keller Williams Legacy, one of the biggest dialogues we had is why are we here, right? That the mission statement. But we did not approach it like we're not going to have a paragraph. We're not going to have a paragraph explaining who we are. Okay, that's boring. Okay, and I'm going to use the word settled. It wasn't settled. It was a heated argument about each word. Is the reason Keller Williams Legacy exists is to transform lives through real estate.
Yep.
Okay? And then everything that we did was in line with that. Every decision that the executive leadership team made was in line with that. The conversations become really easy.
Yep.
When you're up to something bigger than being #1, because being #1 is not a mission.
That's a finite game, right?
It's a result.
Infinite game. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Nothing wrong with that. Okay, like, and look, sports, professional sports make it easy because at the end of each season there is a #1, there is a winner. Life is not NFL. There's a lot of parallels. I got it. There's a lot of parallels. But
Yep.
Look, you do not have a week break before your work days. Okay, you do not have an off season as a real estate professional. Okay, there's no number. I mean, I guess you could go at the #1, but that just becomes a futile attempt at something. It's like it's not life. It's like once you stand for something bigger, it becomes very easy to stand, just to stand in the face of everything. So when people laughed at us, it was like, okay, great. It has nothing to, like, keep laughing. We're here to transform lives through real estate. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, the mission becomes bigger than the noise. And there's a lot of noise and there's a lot of gossip in this industry. And it's just like, it doesn't really matter. Like, you're still going to sleep well at night because you are still fulfilling your mission. You're going to feel fulfilled internally. And the results will show up over time with the associates that join your brand, and they will help you build it because you put so much into them.
That's it. And look, everything rises and falls on leadership.
Yep.
Okay, like And over the last year or so, I've been more present to it than probably any point in my life. Okay. And when you get it, it's like, listen, people, I heard somebody talk about different brands. I was listening to a podcast, and it was like brilliant. And it was something about like, look, if there was a perfect brand, everybody be at it. If there was a perfect model, there wouldn't be so many brokerages out there. Okay, there isn't anything perfect, just like there isn't a perfect house or a perfect person. It's all about the value that each brings, and leadership becomes a big component of the value. The question is whether the buyer, the agent in our case, as an example, appreciates that value and sees leadership as value, as an example. Because look, some could take that this was a leadership conversation, but here's the thing about leadership. Leadership is an intangible. You can't point to leadership. Leadership, like, is it there? Is it there? Like, this is a mouse. Okay, it's real. Leadership is leadership. Leadership exists in conversation, and so to make the kind of like the full circle is, people grow in the conversations you have around them, like the bold law says. And it's if you're on a mission, I know you're on a mission to create, to turn the Jacksonville market into to turn the conversation in the Jacksonville market into a business owner conversation, because you're seeing what lack of the conversation leads to. Burnout, inauthenticity, right? Like just losses, like market turns is going to wash out so many people that thought they were doing really, really great. Okay. All it is a leadership conversation. You're speaking to the person's higher level of self. And John, it will get frustrating for you and Brittany because not everybody is ready for it. So my advice for you directly, and anybody's listening in a similar position, don't stop having the conversation. Trust that the people will wake up when each and every person is ready to wake up. Keep having the conversation the same way that you've been having it with your buyers and sellers. And then suddenly somebody who was not ready to sell their house on March 1 is ready to sell their house on June 1. You just got to keep the conversation going. That person who keeps the conversation going and stands for something, like you and Brittany, they win.
Yeah, and what's interesting is it's the same conversation that we're having with buyers and sellers that we are with agents. I mean, all we're doing is like, here's the data on your house. This is what the data tells us. Based on this data, do you want to price it here, here, or here? Here's how long it should take based on this data. And then like the same conversation with the agent is like, hey, why is that data not controversial, but the data that we're putting on talking about the agent's profitability and being able to fund their life, why is that controversial? It just doesn't make sense to me.
But look, the reason it doesn't make sense to you is because there is an incongruency in who you are and who the average agents are. And it's not bad or different or good or anything like that. All it is just different. And so look, in the real estate industry, the conversation for buyers and sellers is a common conversation. It's a common conversation. The buyer, like those who want to sell their house, call a realtor. It's kind of like an easy connection.
Right.
The realtors that are waking up tomorrow at 7 a.m. or 4 a.m. or 8 a.m. are not thinking about moving brokerages, are not thinking about, you know what, I really want a business owner conversation. Or really, you know what, I've been caught in the sales mentality, which is top line mentality. And what pays the bills is the business owner mentality, which is the bottom line mentality. They're just not, that's not what it's, yeah. So look, you're that alarm clock for them. You just got to keep it going. The same way that you do with buyers and sellers, you got to stay in front of them. And sooner or later, somebody, and may not even be in a conversation with you, they may be talking to their broker, or they may be talking to their spouse, or they may be like at the Tony Robbins event, where they may be fill in the blank, and they're like, my God, John and I 30 days ago had this conversation. You know what? Let me check in with him. Like, remember, you're here for freedom of choice, so that people can do what they were meant to do on this planet. When you stand in that, it's like some will join, some will join later, some will never join, some will like that you're young, some will like that your name is John and it reminds them of their ex. Like, okay, people are people.
Yeah, what's interesting is it's those people who are in like the 2 million to the 10 million producers who need it, probably that conversation the most, and they're just not having it. And when it's those are the people that can get to the next level. Like, I don't think people, when you go to the conference and they say, okay, I have 500 people and we're doing $200 million, it's like, you know, you don't need to do that. Like, you can do it with 2 or 3 people. You could probably just do it with 1 if you have the right systems, models, and you're doing the right tracking systems. And people just aren't aware of that. And I think like we just need to get out there and start sharing the story more. I mean, what would be the best way to do that? Is it through sharing the story? Because there's a clear line between reputational damage if it comes across if you're bragging, right? So you have to be like very careful. You need to make it about them and their journey. So that way it's like not, hey, it's not all about me. It's about how does my journey and what I learned help you. Is there some advice that you have around that as well?
Good. Again, I mean, this conversation is not meant to flatter you, but again, your instincts are right on board. Like, look, I've known you for a bit now. Like, you've never crossed the line on bragging, and you have a bunch to brag about. Okay, the best way to share a story is through the successes that your people are having. That's what I did. It was like, it was not about me, it was about the conversation, and it was about the difference that the conversation was making. So, one of the people that, like, just like, remember, like it was yesterday, is Jackie Ovat, who literally was like sitting in my office crying that she was a minute away from leaving a real estate industry after 10 years, almost 10 years in it. And, it came over with us. It was my first year. It was like, I was 4 months into it. That's why it's probably so fresh into it. Signed up for a lot of training, like was the most coachable person ever, and she's now pushing 15 million and lives the life that she wants. She's on ALC. She's a, chair of the, oh my God, the committee, the social committee. Like, she just loves it.
Yeah.
And it was about the difference that the conversation made,
right,
for her, that I just showcased. And then there were countless examples from, Mel Ledbetter, whose profit share checks were high and business was going up, to William Savage, to Tina Belleville. There was just one after another. Once you put like-minded people in the same pot, it's just like boom, 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 boom. And then you just show the stories. It's never about you. It's not even about your brokerage. It's about the conversation.
Yeah.
And you just happen to be the leader who's having that conversation.
Right. Yeah.
Hope that helps.
Well, it does, because we've proven it through the agents on our team. So we have, a couple examples of like massive success. We have about 3 extreme success stories. And, I've been doing the coaching as well. And the people that I was coaching were having tremendous success. And now it's just a matter of, hey, it's going to take time. Like, it's not like everything. It's not going to happen overnight. It's time on task over time. You have the conversations, you change the person's direction of their business, and it's small tweaks to each one of those people's business. And then like over the year, you look at it and be like, how different is this because we went into partnership together and worked on it together versus you doing it on your own.
Yeah, so you're kind of setting it up for like massive exposure later. One thing that I would add to that is look, profit is, when you think about 4 conversations or lead lag measures, profit is a lag measure.
Right.
Okay?
Yep.
Most important one, in my opinion, but it's lag. So I rarely celebrated the lag measures. I focused on the lead measures. And it became a really clear conversation. Like, for example, if somebody joined our brokerage and they went from taking 1 listing a month to 3 listings per month, dude, that's a huge improvement. We know that if somebody goes from taking 1 listing a month to 3 listing a month, 200% increase, awesome. But then we know what that's going to do to the lag measure. So we always tied it in the conversation. but the focus was, hey, you know, first 3 months in business, 5 under contract. The key there is that it was all numbers. It wasn't how great Jackie was.
Right.
Jackie was great regardless of where she was.
Yep, exactly.
And
Yep.
regardless of what industry she's in, regardless of what brand she's with, like Jackie's just great. So is John, so is Julie, so is Mikey. Everybody's awesome. It's not about personal. It's not about popular and how it's about like 3 months in real estate, 5 listings, big freaking deal.
You're just looking at the results. I mean,
That's it.
like, forget all the noise. At the end of the day, it's about the results. It's about who won the battle, like who won the game, and
or who is winning at least.
well, who's winning at their own game, right? Because it's their own goals at that point. So it's like you win by helping someone get from point A to point B, and point B is their goal, and point A is where they are right now, and that's it.
Yeah, and then we combine it all into the brokerage win, right? Because when your brokerage cannot win without people in your brokerage winning.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, they are.
Okay?
They are your brokerage.
Exactly. So then it's like, okay, not only are you winning, you're also on the winning team. And there are months that some people don't feel like they're winning, but knowing that you're on a winning team is great. Knowing that you're on a team that's winning creates the opportunities for people to bounce back from not winning.
Yep.
It's fascinating. It's fascinating to watch. It was just an amazing experience seeing how awesome people can be when you suspend all the judgment and when people are ready. And just like you would if somebody, just like with a seller, if somebody is not ready to sell, okay, call me when you are, or I'll keep in touch with you. It's the same, just like you pointed out, just the same with the real estate professionals.
Yeah.
Some are not ready, they will be.
Yeah. So what's next for the real estate professional? We kind of talked about profit. We talked about, how team structures and all that kind of stuff, and recruiting and what agents are looking for, why they get into the industry. What is next for the agent?
Well, I think that, look, I do not have a crystal ball. And here's the thing, what's next is such a kind of, I know exactly what you're asking. And it's I'm never a speculator, but we know that the industry is shifting, and technology is enhancing consumer experience and should enhance the agent's experience. So those who are behind the tech ball, so to speak, are probably going to miss out. But here's the thing, dude. This business is still a relationship business.
Yep.
Okay. So it's however you get in touch with people. The beautiful thing about it is that you do not need to sell 1,000 homes to make a really great living.
Yep.
And if you know 200 people, my God, and you serve them right, and you're in front of them, I don't care if it's an app, if it's a drip, if it's a face-to-face, if it's a pie giveaway every single, I don't care what it is. It's consumers. This is still a transaction where trust is really important. And until, in my opinion, there is an Armageddon scenario. And that Armageddon scenario, in my opinion, and I asked this at one of the conferences, the broker agnostic conference that I went to, and somebody from Realogy family, is like the Armageddon scenario that I think that is possible is the need for trust is taken out, where it doesn't matter that you're getting represented. Like, for example, when I bought my new home, there was very little need for trust because of how many warranties were on it.
Yeah, you have like a 1-year inspection. Yeah.
You have like,
they're gonna fix everything. It's a big brand. They have to keep their reputation up.
Exactly. And then the state checks the work, and then state has a guarantee fund for the builder. So it's kind of like I didn't need an agent for new for a new home purchase. So how can this be? And again, this is Armageddon scenarios. What's preventing Wells Fargo or Amazon or somebody that is has more money than God, say like, look, John, you get an email saying your house on 123 Main Street, we're going to give you 300 grand. And based on your shopping experience or shopping patterns, it looks like, you're ready to have that second kid. And, it's time for you to move up from your 2,500 square feet rancher into a 4,000 square foot house. And we have three houses planned out for you. Which one would you like? This plan, that plan, or this plan? By the way, if you pick this and you sign here, you initial here, all you have to do is leave your house. We're going to send our movers. They're going to pack you up, move you. So on Tuesday, you wake up in your old house. On Wednesday, and you go to sleep in your new house.
Yeah.
Okay. And we deposit $100,000, or excuse me, we take $50,000 from your bank account because that's the difference in the down payment. Oh, and by the way, we saved you 0.5% on your interest rate. Oh, and then also everything in your house is guaranteed for 5 years. And here's a name for your property management service that if shower doesn't work or this doesn't work, you call us.
Yeah. No,
and then it's like, okay, like how many of those people will call you to say, like, they may be like, is this real? At best, they will be, can you beat this? That's how loyalty will be measured. Because, if we think, again, this is Armageddon scenario, but like, if we think that, and by the way, there's tons of loyalty, we just don't stay in front of people, right? But, we all have had surprises where a quote unquote a friend or an old customer or old client, uses somebody else, and you drive by their house and you're like, oh crap, it's somebody else is selling this house, right? Or whatever that experience is.
Happens to everybody.
Yeah, of course. Dude, I used to be an undercover agent for like a couple of years at least. I was waiting for people to call me. Forget about it. So it was like loyalty will be measured whether or not that email will be forwarded to you. Because how many people, like, sooner or later be like, that's a sick deal. Why would you not take it?
Right.
Guaranteed. Both sides are guaranteed. And it's, that Armageddon, I used to think it was 1 or 2% success, but the way the technology is moving, predictive analytics, and not only predictive but prescriptive analytics is, I think that there's probably 10% chance that may happen, because money is really, people are not after commissions anymore. People are now after selling you everything.
Yeah, the bundle.
And the bundle, as you're noticing, thank you for saying that. I hope that those that are watching are noticing, is getting larger and larger and larger.
Yeah. I mean, everyone's trying to do the bundle. If you think about it, like Open Doors, Zillow, everybody has these bundle packages where, because the way that I saw it, that I was thinking it was going to end up, and this, we're talking like 10 years down the line. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take time for people to get everybody onto the same platform. But it could be like a stock trading. Instead of trading stocks, you kind of like trade houses, and everything's bundled into that one little trade, and it transfers ownership using blockchain from this person to forget the title company. Title companies are gone. Blockchain's the new thing, and every county eventually has to adopt blockchain, so there's no issues. And the house is transferred from this person to that. It's kind of like a similar vision. It's just, does the platform, who is going to be that platform, and how is it going to interact with the public? Or is the public just not going to own property anymore? They're all going to be renters, and there's going to be like a giant, like, it's got to go some way. I don't really see it being so diverse as it is today, where like home ownership is just so cut up. Like, it's going to eventually, like, the pendulum's going to swing. It's kind of like maybe a little bit to the right now. It's going to swing up here, and then everyone's going to get fed up, and it's going to swing back. But like, I definitely think it's going a certain direction.
And I think it is going in the direction, in one of those directions, which is more of a uniform experience that kind of resembles rent with a little bit of upside. And upside may be either financial upside or some kind of a service, additional service.
Yeah.
Because once you streamline the transaction to such a level, you essentially commoditize it, right? All the components of it. It makes it a lot easier, which is what a lot of, it's always been a pressure in the industry. It's now with technology, it's a lot easier. And look, I have a really great friend of mine from back in DC who's now owns a blockchain company, and he called me 18 months ago when he started it, and he's like, do you know about blockchain? And back then I was like, I knew a little bit, so I just YouTubed it.
Yeah.
And the first entity that came up was for me was title companies, right? It's like how
Oh
much
yeah.
money title companies are collecting for like transferring ownership. In any case, it's one of the data points that many Americans are not looking at, or many real estate professionals are not looking at, is the corporate ownership of real estate, of single family real estate. And Gary, Gary just did a vision speech at Family Reunion. He mentioned it, but I've been looking at that number. The number has been steadily rising. It's now close to 10% of rentals.
Yep.
Not apartments.
Progress Homes, Tricon, First
Yep.
Like there's these major players out there buying these single family rental
Tens of thousands of them.
I don't know if you know this, Vlad. I used to re-underwrite those loans for those rental properties, package them together, and then sell them internationally at my investment bank. So you get to see the numbers and how much cash flow they're taking. And every single one that they buy is basically a fee that's kind of, in my mind, right? Everybody's got a different perspective. A fee that goes on to the consumer and takes away them earning equity and then just gives it straight to corporate investors who already have most of the wealth anyway. They're just getting great cash flow now at very low risk.
That's it. And then they can do, like, because it's a real estate asset, they can do a lot of maneuvering with it.
Yep.
On the back end, all legit, nothing wrong with it. But
right.
Real estate allows you to get really great rates. It actually makes sense for them to own it because of all the other businesses that they can borrow capital at a really low rate. So it becomes almost like a hedge conversation. But it's not even a hedge. It's there's tax. Real estate is a tax advantage asset, right? And then it's a hard asset, so it's the easiest one to borrow against. So I mean, it just makes a lot of sense. So that corporate ownership, it goes up. But look, when they buy it, that means that you don't make the commission.
Yep.
Okay. Or when and they're probably never going to be selling it. And the great thing for them, at least, I think that anybody who owns real estate is, the chances of rental rates going down are, there's only one situation that's deflation, but then you have bigger things to worry about than
you're right.
How much your tenant is paying or not paying when there's deflation in the United States. And it's a no-brainer. So why aren't we as real estate professionals? I know you're different. I mean, when I say we, I'm excluding you and me from it because I know we're both in that. They need to be buying real estate because there's a run on it. Yep. There's a run on it. It's so slow. It doesn't feel like it.
Like one year, and then there's nothing left for anybody. Well, then
that's it. And then we're like in France, where most people, or in Europe, where ownership is kind of like reserved for the really rich, and nobody thinks about not owning. Like the French don't wake up saying we want to be homeowners like we do in America with American Dream. They're like, where can I get a different apartment? Where can I get a bigger apartment? They don't know. They may be paying the same company that owns it's just so concentrated. And then again, you mentioned something about the disparity, right, between upper and lower, which is measured in my God, I can't believe I even remember this crap, the Gini coefficient. And it's in the United States, it's been widening every year.
It's insane. I was actually having a debate with someone the other day about it, and like 38.5% of people in the United States have less than $1,000. So when someone says like the economy is doing really great and they're in that 38.5% and they only have $1,000 in their bank account, it's like, but you're not benefiting from that. Like the only people who are benefiting that are the people who own assets, and their assets are getting inflated by a Fed that's keeping rates low artificially. And you're not getting any of those. So the benefits are all going to a certain group. And if you don't make it to that group, I believe that we have 1 decade left before your family tree becomes either the working class because of technology and the other shifts that are either the working class or the investor class, and you owe it to your family over the next 10 years to build as much wealth as possible, or else the gap from you to be able to get to the bottom to the top, the American dream idea, is going to be gone. Like, it's going to be virtually gone. Like, I don't know how you're going to do it when technology is going to wipe out a ton of jobs, and you're going to be you're going to be like the worker bee fixing the machines, or you're going to be the person who owns the technology for the machines. And there's really there's going to be like two sides of it, which going to, I don't see it going any other way, because it's already moving that direction so fast.
Oh, yeah, there's already a gravitational pull. There's, already a term. They no longer call them tech hubs. They call them brain hubs.
Got it.
And even the United States of America is being pulled apart, where population, like Austin is a great, area, right? Where it's just, there's this gravitational pull by the tech companies, because Silicon Valley is already so saturated. And there's other, right? San Diego, Raleigh, North Carolina, right? Even like there's New York, there's DC, but then it's the entire population is going to be pulled. And yeah, there's going to be essentially those with, software jobs, and those who are servicing the software jobs.
And what's that going to do for your kids, right? Like, if you don't make it, your next gen, like if your kids are going to school in 10 years and you didn't make it to get them to own real estate that's in their name, or be able to get them the education that they need so they're going to be able to survive and thrive in the next 20 years, like, what are you going to do? I just think it's going to be, and people are going to be so aware of it, because they're going to know that they're not going to know that they have not, because we haven't really felt it yet, because the tech changes have been so dramatic that you can still do everything that you want to do and have a really comfortable life. But I think, like, after a certain point of time, people are going to realize, like, oh, they're going to, like, exactly the same conversation that we're having is, like, they're going to wake up. They're going to wake up and be like, oh, I'm on the other side of this. And, like, I just really didn't understand the issue until it, like, really starts showing up.
That's it. And so, like, if we bring it home, it's how does somebody put themselves in a position to be in that group, right? It's a business owner mindset, focus on the bottom line, focus on profitability, because it's profitability that's going to drive your lifestyle, and it's also going to drive your investments. You cannot invest with GCI.
That's right. That's what we're talking about. Like, real estate sales is to get cash, and then the cash is to pay to your living expenses, your savings, and then you need to minimize your monthly expenses for stuff that doesn't add value, which I think people should review monthly. And then once you get to the investing side, like, invest in real estate. Like, it's an amazing cash flow asset. It has price appreciation.
Yes.
It doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter if the market's high or low at this point. I mean, actually, affordability, I think I saw was like the best it's ever been. It's more affordable than ever because interest rates are so
because
low.
of interest rates, exactly. Yeah, you
got
to do it. And
if you're not rich, people get rich because they buy assets and have other people pay it off. Like, why would? And it's not a complicated thing. You can read it in any of the books, Dave.
And that's the thing. Is like, if you were a shoe salesman and you knew that you were selling shoes and those shoes were going to appreciate, or somebody would pay you to wear those shoes, but you still own those shoes, and then you can, like, have the people bring them back and somebody else pick it up. Like, would you sell any shoes? No, you would just have a bunch of rental shoes.
Yeah, and imagine that shoe
pay and then bring back.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so and you know it. Like, the point here is that you know it. People call you to help them with it, and money is cheap.
Yeah.
In this industry, because it's an asset. Like, I've been in this industry for 15 years, never had a need for money. Okay. And interestingly is, the less need for money you have, the more money gets thrown at you. Like, I remember, I did not believe in leverage. Luckily I had access to some cash when I first started flipping, but then, like, my title company, and I didn't know what connections. I would just do my thing, buying, rehabbing, flipping, selling. It was like, okay, tunnel. And then I was at one settlement, and the owner of the title company, Bob, his daughter Marcy was running the title company. He was there. He's like, "Vlad, do you want to borrow some money?" I was like, first it was weird because I'm Russian, and it's like, it's like kind of like, okay, hold on a second. What do you mean, like, borrow some money? Okay. But Bob was like, look, like, this is like your fifth or sixth settlement with Marcy. It seems like you know what you're doing. Like, I've asked some people about you. You seem like, where are you getting your money right now? And I said, well, I had my own money, and then my sister took a line of credit, like, I don't know, 100 grand or something, and gave it to me. And he's like, if you had more money, would you buy more houses? And I said, sure, yeah, I guess so. Like, it was like a weird conversation. Like, all right, look, the normal rate right now on the street is, like 4.16%. I'll give it to you at 12 and 1. I was like, let me crunch the numbers. And I started borrowing from Bob, like private lender. Like, I wasn't even asking for it. So instead of, buying one house a month, I would buy 2 houses a month, right? And finance one, or half and half, right? And he never did an appraisal. He never did an inspection. He just wired me the money. It was awesome.
Right. So it sounds to me like the job of like a team leader is to, number one, get people to think like business owners and get them the profit to fund their life. And then number two, which is level 2, help them make strategic investments that they understand and will grow their family's wealth for like legacy purposes. Is that right?
Yeah. I think that everybody has to invest their access of their cash flow. So yeah, I think that you hit both nails on the head. Is figure out how to maximize your profitability.
Yep.
Okay, and it could be expense reduction or a top line improvement. Okay, both are valid, depending on who you're dealing with. Like, look, I've had teams join Legacy, and the way that I helped them is just told them how to cut out unneeded expenses, and right away they start making more money. And then, what do you do now with the money? And it's now you're going from a business owner to an investor conversation. And it's depending on your age, depending on your risk tolerance, you got to be putting money somewhere. And it could be stock market if that's sufficient. But dude, like, the proven method of building wealth in the United States is real estate. And I don't know any people who got filthy wealthy on mutual funds.
Yeah, no, I don't mean.
I know some mutual fund managers, okay, that got filthy on selling wealthy on, or like really wealthy on selling mutual funds. I just don't know many people who are like, oh my God, the reason I have freedom at the age of 40 is because I invested in this really cool mutual fund.
Yeah, no, I don't know anybody either. And I don't know if you've read the book Money by Tony Robbins, but he kind of goes over like the mutual fund.
Yeah. Oh my God, that was an eye-opening.
It scares the crap out of me. It's like, I'm going to see my own portfolio. Thank you very much. The amount of fees that they take from you that you don't know about, that kind of roll over year to year and compound.
Yeah. This conversation makes no difference if somebody doesn't have the profit.
Right. Yep.
And so it goes back to, like, your conversation is, all right, let's wake people up that the reason they're hustling, the reason they're serving people is actually not for awards. Awards are great. It's so that you can fund the life of your dreams. And now let's talk about what that, first of all, that looks like. Where are you now, and what's going to take you to get there? And I wish that life was that simple, and maybe it is simple, it's just not easy, because what gets in the way is all of this stuff. It's like, oh, I don't believe you. No, it can't be. I can't do this. Blah, blah, blah. Just, you gotta, like, as leaders, most of the time we take crap out of people's ways.
Yeah.
So that they can get what they want.
Yeah.
Yep.
I love it, Vlad. Well, I'm so glad you came on and chatted with us today, and we can share this message, because we obviously have very similar missions in terms of what we look to accomplish for ourselves and for those people that are in our lives. And I'm so grateful that I even got to meet you, because you are just a rock star. And every time I talk to you, I learn more. And what I love is every time I talk to you is that, like, you say something and I'm like, I've been thinking that for like 2 years, and you just said it so eloquently. You're like so far beyond. I'm so grateful. So
I look, thank you so much for your compliment, and it's totally received. Like, I know that I have my way with words and kind of and sharing the message with people, but please know that, you know, getting to this point is a function of who you surround yourself with.
Yep.
And that, I look, I know I'm preaching to the choir. I'm talking more to the people who are watching or listening. It's like, you know, you've been in kind of really big conversations in your iBanking and Big Four experience for Brit, and obviously Brit keeps you on in check, right? And like,
Yep.
and continue having the big conversations. Is I believe that everyone in real estate and beyond deserves an access, deserves to be in a conversation where a leader like yourself, and then there's many others, right, who
Yep.
care about not only like having an agent or having an employee, but how do I help that human being get where that human being wants to go?
Yep.
And when they're in that conversation, their lives open up. And that's who you are for me, is you're that person. That's why I love having these conversations, and you can call on me anytime, is because we do have this, you know, similar pathway. We are on the same journey, and it's that journey of maximizing our difference on this ball of fire. We're not here just to make a difference, just maximize it. And you're going to surround yourself with God knows how many people that are going to be listening to your message. And I know your heart is pure. They're going to be listening to your message, and they're going to be taking your advice. I already saw it on Facebook. You know, people are getting coached by you, right? Or like, and you're already making a difference. So, dude, just keep freaking going. Don't let anybody stop you. Okay. And I hope that, you know, this conversation and then people watching will just, regardless of what actions they take, one is put themselves in the conversation like this, whether it's with in a mastermind in their brokerage, in a different brokerage, whether it's a community of, you know, like Go Abundance, like you're in, right? And then many other, it's like, put yourself with people who are thinking huge. It's
That's
like a mentor of mine. I have mentors all over the place, but this one mentor of mine here in Baltimore, a funny guy. But here's one thing that I'll share with him that Neil has taught me. He's like, here's a way to build, to make $1 million. Create a business that produces 2 million. And if you fail miserably, at least you'll get to $1 million.
Yep.
And, right? And like, how awesome would it be to fail miserably and get to $1 million? And I believe that in real estate, everybody can create $1 million or $2 million business. And then let's fail miserably and get to $1 million. Profit, not top line.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. Well, again, thank you, Vlad, for taking the time to chat with me and with the public here. And I hope that the message gets out and people connect with us further. So if someone wants to get in touch with you, Vlad, how do they do that?
I'm not on Instagram. I am on Facebook. Just private message me, or vlad@vladkats.com. That's my email address.
Awesome.
And then if they really need to get in touch with me, John Brooks has my cell phone number, so you can screen those. Okay, so text John.
Text me and I'll get you connected. In all seriousness, I think this is going to help a lot of people, and the conversations that we're having should be shared. So thank you again for your time. And I know that we will be connected in this life. So I appreciate it, Vlad.
Amen, man. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to contribute.
Absolutely.
Later.
Thanks.